My why is because I believe every single person deserves to be heard. That every single person has greatness within them.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Master Your Life. I am Kate McKay and I am so glad you are with us today. I'm absolutely thrilled to introduce my guest here today. And we've tried to do this a few different times and we've known each other for quite some time. And yet this is the time. This is the time. This is the time. Welcome, Josh, to the show. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you for having me, Kate. It's a pleasure.
I'm psyched. And so just a little bit, as I always do, about Josh, and then I'm going to mostly have him talk about who he is through his story, which is really impactful, really powerful. So Josh Diskin is a visionary entrepreneur. He's an investor and a dedicated advocate for impactful social change. Not just the fluffy kind that you hear, but the real stuff. He's the founder and managing partner of InVETment Capital. He's in spearheads and initiatives aimed at providing affordable housing and essential resources to U.S. military veterans with an innovative approach that he is, and also combining real estate investment, technology-driven solutions, and strategic philanthropy. Joshua is committed to improving the lives of veterans and reducing veteran homelessness and suicide rates. Well, I can't imagine a more noble cause. Mr. Josh D., thank you so much for coming on again.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much, Kate.
So you're going to go take me back. You're going to take me back. The seed of you, that this part of you, because this is not a small venture. You are basically, I love military imagery and metaphor, but you are like General Patton in the war room designing something pretty amazing. This isn't just necessary reactive enemy fire trying to find the band-aid or the solution, but this is very high-level strategy. I'm thrilled to have been part of this whole evolution, and I would love to hear where this seed was birthed in you.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate the opportunity to share my story. And Kate, you've been with me through a big part of my journey, a lot of my struggles and times that I didn't know if I could keep going. So thank you for always being in my corner. But I'll just start from the beginning. So I'm from Austin, Texas, born and raised, joined the Marine Corps straight out of high school. I was an aircraft firefighter. I served in Southern California, Okinawa, and North Carolina. I did that for about 8.5 years and got out right before COVID. So I thought I was going to be free, but that didn't happen.
Yeah,
and during, 30 days before my transition, I had torn my chest in the weight room. So it wasn't like a cool story or anything like that. And honestly, I had really just been going down the wrong road, spent a lot of my time at the bar on the weekends and drinking a lot and not really having a direction for my life. I felt pretty trapped in my situation. And our last unit, unfortunately, had a suicide every year. It was just kind of a toxic environment. There was a lot of toxic leadership, but also just not a lot of direction for guys who are in that position and wanting to do something greater with their lives or just having no direction in life. And I think that can lead to a lot of drifting. And that was definitely me. And, at the time I didn't have any basis in faith at all. So there really wasn't a playbook for life or something that you can lean on when the storms come. And, in everybody's life, those times come. So I tear my chest. The gym was really my only chapel at the time.
Dan.
So that kind of got taken away for a little bit. And I get out, I start to drift a little bit. And, I already had this firefighting job lined up, but that was 6 months out, and I just started to smoke weed every day and drink a lot of alcohol on the weekends, which, wasn't the best decision, and gained 50 pounds overnight. And I'm looking at myself in the mirror, and now I'm unrecognizable. I'm not this Marine anymore. I don't have this identity, and I just felt lost, and I just found myself in this toilet bowl swirl of a depression where the only thing that I could relieve that was by self-medicating through drugs and alcohol. And you know, there was a time where I knew I had to do something, and the first step was just getting my physical right. And I decided to stop smoking, stop drinking, and not and at the time not stop drinking forever, but just, hey, I gotta stop right now, right?
Mhm.
So got my body right, got back in the gym, started, eating a bunch of organic products, like all the stuff on the physical side, and got hired onto the fire department, and I'm, working there for a year. And I'd been taking the ADHD medicine. I wasn't sleeping great, and at this time, I still hadn't made the decision to search for anything outside of my own vices, my own willpower. There was nothing like that buoy to hang on in the storm. I still didn't have that. So yes, I had this. My physical appearance is good. I'm rocking at the fire department. I literally was investing all my money into stocks. Made some money there, flipped that into crypto, and felt pretty good about my position there. And I had an experience night that I can, in layman's terms, I would call it a panic attack, but in spiritual terms, I believe I had a spiritual experience. And I wasn't sleeping well, and it was about two o'clock in the morning, and I just kept hearing this banging on my door, and it was like boom, 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 boom. And I couldn't figure out what it was. And, I grabbed my gun and I walk around my apartment, and I open the door, nobody's there. I go on my balcony, nobody's there. And I'm losing it. And I remember just sitting on my bed and thinking to myself, man, if you're going to live the rest of your life like this, you might as well end it now. And there had been a Bible sitting on my nightstand years that I had never opened, collecting dust. And I just had a thought in my head saying, maybe I should give this a shot. Maybe I could, maybe I'm not a Christian, but maybe I just read this to get some knowledge. And maybe it's a sentence, maybe it's a word. So I made a decision that night to just read in the Bible, and really live my life in a different way. And 2 weeks later, I knocked my chief's door, and I said, "Hey, chief, I'm getting out of here." He said, "What do you mean? You sick?" And I said, "No, I'm leaving the fire department. I got all my stuff packed." And everybody's like, "Dude, no one leaves the fire department." But
It's
for
true. I've
me,
heard that before.
yeah, absolutely.
You
It,
have
it was
that
a
kind
great job.
of.
Yeah, yeah. Guys, I was, going to college and all this stuff. So it was a tough decision to leave, but I knew that I just had this calling to want to get into entrepreneurship. And I bring up the Bible and everything like that because it's been so intertwined with my journey as an entrepreneur, and really has given me the basis for faith, and having faith in myself and believing in something higher than myself, and I conduct myself to help others. So first and foremost, everything that I'm doing, and why it's so high level is hasn't me is that's come from God. And I literally was just a guy dipping, drinking, and playing video games all day,
Yes.
and that was 2021 in the summer. So we're coming up on 4 years, right? So that's how I know it's not me, is what I'm saying here.
Right,
So
exactly. Because you
um,
seem so on task and on purpose. That I've always sensed from you, even though, I've known for a few years through that, as part of those last few years. So it's pretty, but weren't you always, I mean, what would you say your key strengths were from, see, not everyone's going to join the Marines, right? And some people are going to
mhm.
join the Army, or they're just going to, do something else. But what about your commitment to the Marines? I mean, was your family surprised that you decided to do that?
Oh man. Well, I grew up with a single mom, and I really can't explain it to anybody other than it's just what I was called to do.
Mm,
And I felt that I needed that discipline coming out of high school. To be honest with you, I probably would have been in jail, or had a ton of DUIs going to college. I just had the discipline to handle it.
I get
So,
you.
and also too, I risk. I want an adventure.
Wow, I love
And
that.
I talked to my recruiter for the Marine Corps. I was pretty dead set on that since I was a kid. And I said, hey, I want recon. I want to be special forces. I won't unless I get the contract. And all right, well, there was one left. They got me the contract, And I went through infantry training. I went to the training for, they call it the Recon Indoctrination Program. And that was a tough lesson. I mean, I made it through 5 weeks of the training, but I didn't have the maturity at 18.
Wow.
And, I got kicked out for skipping classes and just stupid stuff. And that was a tough lesson. And I remember after leaving, calling my parents crying, like, I'll never, when I make a decision to do something, I'll never let something like not working hard or being undisciplined get in my way again. And once I found this mission, I always revert back to that in my life.
Mm,
And to myself, no, this is going to be, you're going to do this or you're going to die. And that's it. And
wow.
there's land, because I just couldn't live with myself if I do this. Like, it's one of those things where I have to do it. Um,
Right.
so
Tell
yeah.
me a little bit about more about that, because
Mhm.
I want you to define or just explain to the audience what you mean by you have to have risk, because that's an important part of, especially when we get into talking about what you're developing and creating and the why behind it and the how, which I can't wait to share with the audience. But
Yeah.
why is risk such a key operative point for you? And what do you want people to know about risk that would help people take necessary steps to live with 2 feet in conviction? Because I think that's the tentativeness of most people. And we're especially working when people come out of the military, that they were there, everything was so high alert, they were in service, they were in community, everything was regimented. And then they get kicked outside on the other side of it where none of that exists. And
Right.
so where is the bridge of understanding that risk needs to be a part of a thriving life? How would you explain that?
Well, at the core of it, the way I understood it as when I was younger was I never wanted the adventure to end. And I'm like, man, is this where we have to be responsible adults and be unhappy? When it happen? You know what I mean? It's like, well, you go to college, you do this, and now at 30, you get married, and now you gotta grow up, dude. And I've always rejected that, because I just it's a way to think about what you've been called here to do, because we all have something that's incredibly powerful, that we're incredibly good at, and our lives are just finding what that is, and you find it, that's your greatest expression of service to your fellow humans, and that's the key to happiness. So, and that's my opinion on that, but
Yeah, well, that makes it's an important distinction, because in order for you to have a life that was risk-free, in order for you to settle in that, you had to drug yourself out in order to survive, right?
Mhm.
And it
Mhm.
was like the banging that you kept hearing was symbolic, obviously, as a metaphor, but it's like the knock on the door saying, go, like, what are you doing? And so how would you explain that to the audience about why taking a risk or leaning into that part of us? Because we all have it. We all have it, and yet some of us more than others. And I think oftentimes, if you are ADHD or a little bit different than most people, as I am,
Mhm.
that we have to have that in order to thrive. That I have to feel the edge of things, and in order to feel alive, and to be able to make that a conscious choice is for most people very uncomfortable in perception of us too. And I think that that's the trickiest spot about being a person that's not risk averse or has to live our lives on the edge
Mhm.
and dealing with the judgment of others saying, just step back, just be comfortable, just stay in the fire department, right?
Right.
So how do you talk about walking to that edge for people?
Well, you have to ask yourself, do you really want to feel alive? Like, I mean, and tangibly, like, I had everything that the world would say is success, you know? I'm working in a great fire department with great guys. And I got all the certs, and I was doing more certs. I'm going to college, I'm saving money. I got this like investment portfolio now. It's like, so it's all the things that the world says, hey, this is gonna make you, happy. But I mean, we're meant to be out, doing things, creating. I mean, we're all creators in our own right. So I think when we become the worker drone and just become on autopilot and we just go home and we eat Halo Top and watch, Netflix and all that, life becomes very dull and very boring. And for me, personal is if life is dull and boring, I'd rather not be here. It just doesn't make sense for me to be here. I'm like, all right, cool. Let me how far I can go. Can I house 200,000 vets? I believe I can. Can I suicide? I believe I can. Can we homelessness? Good gosh. Yes, we can do those things. But why isn't it happening? Well, I think we have to take it to that level, and I think that's where life is. And I'll give you an example. That banging, quick story on that is, I'm sitting in the barracks at 9 o'clock at night, playing some video games like I usually did at that time in my life, and I get a knock on the door, that same banging I heard. And unfortunately, it was my Marines letting me know that one of the maintenance in Motor T had unfortunately jumped off third deck and ended his own life. So that banging is very symbolic to me because it's like, okay, you got to make a decision now. Which way are you going to go? Are you going to be this guy who's only thinking about himself, who's yeah, everything for yourself? Whoopee, good job, great job. Hey, what does that tombstone say? Now let's flip it. And in Kate, as you know, I've invested every single dollar, every single minute of my day. I mean, everything for this. So now it's like, all right, well, what's at the end of this road? Well, shoot, man, that's an adventure. I know where this one leads, but I want to. I don't want to know where it leads. I want to say, hey, this is where I'm going, and this is my goal. But what springs out of that, and then how many more people are able to live their lives the way they want to live? And I just think that the possibilities, growth, and just goodness are endless, and that's what gets me excited. I want to be not only doing this, but what comes out of this? What veteran entrepreneurial ventures come out of this? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what are the success stories? So I just think that the unlimitlessness of it is just so exciting for me. And there's very little in this world that gets me excited. And something that gets me excited. So
It's nice that you've tied in what you say is risk as endless. I mean, it's like that's what you said. And your fear was, I never want this risk to end. And then so understanding risk is also potential.
mm,
And sometimes we have to, we talk about creativity, but we also talk about creative destruction. That sometimes we need to destruct the constraint to which we're living in. And sometimes that is the knock on the door, that what you're doing needs to destruct. And I think this is becoming more and more a commonplace conversation that we can have based on what's, the socioeconomic systems of what's going on in our world, that sometimes destruction, here you were a fireman, you know what happens when there's a fire, and then there's controlled burns for a reason, because life comes out of areas that have been in destruction. And you just made the choice on your own to blow it up when you knocked on the door of your boss, the captain, and said, I'm out. I mean, you blew up something that most people have been like, are you crazy? But you were like, I will die there. There is no, I will die there. That comfort is not gonna work for me.
absolutely.
Really
Yeah.
powerful story. That's really great. I'm so glad you shared that. So where did that leave you now? Because now this excitement, this thing that you're creating, if you could just talk a little bit about the mission of what you're working on, and then we'll talk into how you're doing that.
Absolutely. Full transparency. Everybody that knows me knows my story. But I've known 9 guys that are all under 35 that have ended their life due to suicide. All veterans, most of them Marines. It's those things where how can we actually affect these numbers? We have 40,000, over 40,000 nonprofits in this country. The VA is the second most funded arm of the government. And we have half of all veterans using those nonprofit and VA services.
I want you to repeat that, because when I heard that from you today, I was shocked.
Absolutely.
So we have the second highest amount of money going to a organization, And what's the percentage of people, of veterans that are engaged?
50%.
That's shocking to me.
Absolutely. And it's our inability to transition veterans successfully that we see the number of homelessness, we see the number of suicides, and this mentality of drug them and forget them, or HUD vash them and Section 8 them, or this very lazy government mentality doesn't do anything but destroy lives, and it's a system that makes sense and is actually or shoot, I don't have all the words today, Kate, but
Yes, you do.
it's based a system that is that exponentially, but for the right reasons, right? So, and that if you're a government organization, if the problem goes away, so does your money. But
Yes.
if you're a for-profit organization, if the problem goes away, that's great. It means you're making money. You're doing a good job.
Yes.
So we have to get it on this track and not this track. And I think that let's target what's actually going to solve the problem. And what I believe is actually going to solve the problem is making sure that guys have a streamlined way to transition through housing, through community, through their next mission in the form of opportunity and access to resources, so if they should need them. And if we can get that right, think about the reverberations and those from what that's going to do instead of the opposite way. So instead of these guys coming back and, hey, I'm just on my disability, they're giving me these drugs that zombie me out at the VA. I don't know what to do. I'm isolated. That, or hey, I got out, I'm living in this single family home, we got 10 other families here, we're all working in the semiconductor industry. Yeah, I had a little bit of trouble, so I went and got some counseling with the VA. I got a little bit of disability too. Texas Veterans Commission took care of that. But no, 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 I'm good. I got friends. I got, in my mind, I believe it's much more of a common sense answer than this, let's all start a better nonprofit. Everybody that's in the space, I'm on the board for a few nonprofits, and my for this is to ultimately be a funding source for these nonprofits so they can do what they need most, which is serve veterans and do what they love, because they all want to do it. We just need a better economic system to do that.
Right. They do love it. I mean, the people that start any kind of nonprofit, their heart's in the right place, right? So that goes to your mission can be really clear and really heart centered, but your system and your strategy has to be one that can be a multiplier. And so we need, and to be honest, we need a business mindset to create that, not necessarily, you have to have a system. And it goes back to that image of being in the war room. It's like every general has to make the decision on who goes and what gets implemented. So you're rolling out the map and there's a strategy. And so how would you describe that for you? Knowing, I would love to hear your mission,
Absolutely.
just plain out, and then also the how you've on doing that. I'm very curious and very excited for the audience to hear.
Absolutely. So our mission is to house 200,000 veterans a year, because that's how many get out. And our thinking is that we can ultimately reduce veteran homelessness and veteran suicide by first preventing it from happening in the first place, and funding those organizations that actively house homeless veterans. And they do an incredible job. They just need more money. So at the end of the day, we are doing that through housing and community. We are joint venturing with syndication firms and development firms to bring below market attainable housing to veterans in a community setting, and also connect them to job resources and also other veteran resources if they so need them. So, for instance, we're looking at a few different deals right now. One's in Nevada, a few are in Texas, but we'll start with the one in Nevada. So, these are single family homes, they're prefab on slab. The developer is working with us to discount these homes by 20%. So, our phase one is getting guys and their families into a home. We know where the jobs are. We have access to 300 jobs in the area. Take your pick. And from there, we're going to help them with all their VA resources and any follow-on nonprofit resources. And the great thing about this is, Kate, it's all there.
Right.
like you could go to a nonprofit and get boots tomorrow. You can go and get a suit. You can get speaking training. I mean, they're coaching. And all of these people want to help, but we needed a system that ultimately took care of them as well so they can help more vets, but
Mhm.
also streamline the access of information to veterans. And I'm really excited about the application that we're developing called the Civi AI app. And think of this app as a civilian life trainer. Our core demographic is veterans that are under 35. So we're all on the phones and the apps anyway. But think of this as a property tech app, but also a social media app. So imagine me and you are getting out. We both want to move to Dallas. We're already hired into, let's say, a semiconductor job in the area. We both want to pay around 1,800 bucks in rent. And we go to an apartment complex that InVETment Capital is partnered with and owns that we've subsidized for veterans, and they're paying less on that rent, but they're also connected to every other veteran that's in that complex.
Mm.
And through our partners Onward Ops, let's say they already have 6 months of one-on-one career mentorship training. They already have their resume built and they may already be hired or on the career path. But we're also preparing those veterans to take advantage of these opportunities. So instead of, hey, I need you to be broken, I need you to be a victim, and then I'll give you some money. Let's change that. Let's make sure they're doing great financially. They have a plan, a job, they have access to affordable housing, and we're coming up with different loan programs, but also different rent programs like first 3 months free. So we're working on those types of things. But once we are able to create a system to where we're capturing 200,000 vets a year, I truly believe there's no syndicator or developer in this country that does not want to house at least 10% of their housing in veterans. And I want to make that accessible through the app, no matter where you're from. So you don't have to, if you're stationed up in Norfolk and you're from California, I want you to be able to go home. I want you to be able
Yes.
to, hey, maybe your buddy was from California, y'all room together. Hey, maybe you go back by yourself, but there's 10 other vets that hey, they just transitioned. They're you can hit them up and say, hey, I just got out. I want to go in the HVAC. Maybe a guy's working the HVAC can introduce you to his boss. So it's just that the best that I can explain it, because this is what I'm really trying to create here, is there is a type of camaraderie and brotherhood and sisterhood that you talk to any veteran, it's hard for us to explain, but
Yes.
I will say the time that I'm most wealthy in life is when I was in the fire department in Okinawa. And I from a social wealth perspective and just how happy I was because having that brotherhood, that sisterhood, that tribe to be a part of in this world where we're so disconnected, all of us talking computer screens, right? I truly believe that's the answer to reducing homelessness and suicide
Mm.
is having that community, and that's what I want to recreate. I want to recreate community for veterans across the nation in a sustainable way that ultimately has these great outcomes for our veterans and our country.
So I love this because I mean, obviously we share the same experience of losing someone to suicide with the loss of my son. So
Absolutely. Thank you.
the number one self for men, it's not about getting a mani pedi, like women have kind of cornered the market on like the self-care thing. But if
Yeah.
you look at the statistics on for men, their number one is community. That
Mhm.
without community, it's a dangerous situation. And I know you talked to my someone who I also know that does the gaming, so at
Yeah.
least they're together
Mhm.
in the gaming environment. Any way that we can create community, but then adding, I think the most important thing is hope for opportunity, and that allows us to grow and be called to continue to serve. Because if we lose that community and we no longer feel we're of service, what do we have? What do we have?
Right. Absolutely. You know what? In having the ability, just like you were in the barracks, right, to be able to go across the hall and say, "Hey, buddy, what are you doing?" even if they, we're in our 20s, so hey, you're just sitting there playing video games, hanging out. Even if you don't talk, it was just having
Doesn't
your
matter.
brothers there all the time, right? Um, and and also for veterans, we're seeing that 50% of female veterans are self-isolating, which is higher than men.
Mm,
So finding ways to where we can bring everybody together is something that I'm very passionate about. And you talk to any veteran, it's, hey, I can't talk to people in the outside world. We're very vulgar. We're very not politically correct. And though the laughing and the got us through a lot of hard times, and we faced a lot of adversity together, which is how you build relationships. And not everybody's going to understand that. And also, you can be ostracized pretty quickly in the job you're working on by saying one wrong thing, whatever that means, right? But
right.
uh, getting guys together in community and housing, I think, is a wonderful basis to help us reduce homelessness and suicide. And here's a for you that and this is why I chose housing, is that veterans are 13 times more likely to attempt suicide if they're unhoused. So there's
Okay.
a direct correlation between housing and suicide. And then the first year a veteran gets out of active duty, suicide is 3 times higher. So if we can bridge the gap, they call it the deadly gap, through housing and community, and get them into the next mission, which another statistic from Onward Ops is they've successfully transitioned 20,000 veterans and have had 0 suicides.
That's massive.
It's
That's
it's
so
just
huge.
incredible.
So where do you see the biggest obstacle? Because I think that's obviously you're super passionate about this and creating incredible network and opportunity. Where do you see the biggest obstacle?
hmm The biggest obstacle is helping veterans understand it's okay to receive help and getting that message down. The reason why this is why I believe we're failing in this and the numbers keep getting worse is because we have an inability to reach veterans how they need to be reached. And also, our culture is a culture of, hey, I got this. And if I get help, I'm no longer strong.
Mm,
It's just the wrong to think about this because
mm,
we have to change dynamic, and that's why this is a for purpose, for profit. And on the spiritual side, I'll leave you with this as well, is that I don't think there's a world here we reduce suicide and homelessness without God. And I say that someone who literally didn't know God at all and started reading the Bible, getting my own understanding, getting around people who are in Christ, who are building businesses. There's nothing in this world that's going to motivate people to do wonderful and beautiful things outside of that book. And I truly believe that having a presence, which my vision is to have a chaplain in every one of our communities, which we
yes.
are looking at a nonprofit to partner to do that actually. So,
Yes.
and just having that resource and not forcing it on anybody. Let them come to their own understanding and just have the resource and lead by example. Hey, this is what it did for me, man. Like, brought me out of that pit. And now I'm able to do these things. And if that's going to work for you, I think it's a good choice for you. I say that as someone who is deeply, by this opportunity to serve, and also still on my journey. I'm trying to figure stuff out too. But
Right.
I
That's the
mean, shoot,
exciting thing for you though, you know? It's
yeah.
that's the cool thing. That's the exciting thing. So, well, talk to me a little bit about where people can find you, what's next for you, and also how people can be a part of this. They can follow you. Obviously, they can get on your newsletter, your email list, which I think is really super important. But if any of you listeners or viewers here are going, oh my gosh, I have a solution, or I have an idea, or I need that, or I know someone who needs that, this is for you. This is for you. I think I can't stress it enough how much I know and respect you, Josh, in the work that you're doing and the soul work that you're putting in, tirelessly committed to this. And yeah, so just talk a little bit about what's next for your companies, because I'm going to say companies and your missions, and where people can find you.
Absolutely. So as of right now, we just started our legal proceedings. And we're pulling in our pre-seed capital to get us off the ground to run operations. And we'll be moving forward with 1 to 3 projects this year. We'll be funding those projects through a real estate syndication, but also we're looking to place veterans as well this year. So for our project in Nevada, we're looking to place at least 5 veterans, and it is yet to be seen, but we're looking at anywhere from 30 to 60 veterans in the Texas area as well. So that's where we're at. That's this year. But my ultimate vision for this is to be the hub for every veteran to find a success plan, to find housing and community. And I'm just excited for the future of all this because of the impact that we can have together as veterans. Lastly, you can also find me at the Embers to Excellence meetup in Houston. It's a new nonprofit that we started up, and come enjoy a cigar and also a glass of whiskey with your brothers and sisters, and just get out and come hang out, man. So I'd love to see you there. And lastly, you can find InVETmentCapital.com, investment without the S, because we're making investments.
Yeah.
And you can sign up for our newsletter if you're a veteran. And I'd love for you to get more information on our Civi app coming soon this year, and also sign up for our housing list if you're interested in subsidized housing and veteran community with resources. We'd love to have you a part of our community. You can also find me on LinkedIn at Joshua Diskin. And yeah, I'm just so happy you guys were able to be here with us. Thank you for having me.
Joshua, I'm so proud of you. As you know, I feel like you're my son, and you're my partner in life, on this journey of reaching higher levels, reaching into that place that may appear risky to some, but to you, it's the only way we know. And I'm honored to be part of the journey with you. And audiences, please get into this project if you know of anyone that wants to play a part in this and invest in this company. This is something you will want to be a part of. It is not just a feel good, it's the do right. And I'm deeply grateful for this time together today, Josh. Thanks so much.
Oh, thank you so much for everything, Kate. It's always a pleasure. And I just look forward to everything that we are building together and will accomplish.
Yes. And to all the audiences and viewers, thank you so much for joining another episode of Master Your Life. Where is your edge? Where are you ready to break out and to reinvent yourself to be your highest and best self, to serve at the highest level? We're here for you, cheering you on. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.